Sure. I'm Lee Odden, CEO of Top Rank Marketing. We are a B2B content influence and search agency based in Minneapolis, outside of Minneapolis.
Fantastic. So Lee's session is going to be coming up. We have 30 minutes. He has that whole time to himself, which, you're very lucky, and the audience is really lucky to get this time with you. Be sure to stay
great.
Of more sessions coming up from Andy Crestadina, Brian Wallace, Michael Brenner, more. And again, everyone, please add your questions in the live chat. We're trying to get to as many as we can, but even if we don't get to it, our panelists are addressing them after. Lee, I'm going to turn it over to you.
Okay, let's do it. All right. Can you see my screen?
Perfect.
All right, great. Well, let's get started. Welcome to Break Free of Boring B2B with Influential Content Experiences. As Casie said, my name is Lee, I already mentioned I'm Lee from Top Rank. We know that. I get to work with an incredible group of experience makers, as I like to call them. We create content experiences that inspire people for B2B brands like SAP, Dell, LinkedIn, and many others. So I'm going to share you an example. All right, so that is an example. That was a promo video for an interactive microsite that we had created in concert with an event. It was co-created with a variety of B2B marketing experts who shared their advice about how to break free of boring B2B, which is a bit meta, I guess, since that's the subject of my talk. Now, organically, this had over 10,000 views in a week, 100,000 social impressions because of the influencer shares, and multiple consulting requests. The only cost was the cost of our time just to put it together. And this is B2B content today. But is all B2B marketing that exciting, that interesting? Does all B2B content marketing have a 150-foot tall grizzly bear with lasers coming out of his eyes? Probably not. It's not the same for everyone. I think it's funny. There's over 2 million search results for boring B2B. So it's a topic that does resonate. And there's a reason why. 23% of CMOs feel that they're producing, only 23% think they're creating the right content at the right time and delivering it in the right format. And that's an issue. And it doesn't need to mean boring to boring. We can solve for that. We can create content, as I think Shelley had mentioned, having experience creating different formats of content, quizzes, assessments, product finders, interactive content, 360 videos, interactive formats of a variety of types, games, contests, surveys, polls, tools, and calculators. All the things are possible. But and the reason why we need to do that is because we're faced with some challenges as marketers today, not just in the era of pandemic era of marketing, but we're already challenged by how consumers think of us, how they think of brands, how they think of advertising. 65% of consumers in this HubSpot survey don't trust advertising. 55% don't even trust the companies they buy from. That's harsh. 81% do trust friends and family over what they hear from businesses. So who do they trust? In another HubSpot survey, different job titles were surveyed in terms of what people trust the most. There's barista, just below journalist, and where's marketer? Just a few spots above car salesman and politician. Now that's really harsh. So obviously we've got a problem with trust. And the thing is, buyers do want to trust. And a study by Demand Gen Report, 97% of B2B buyers place a higher emphasis on the trustworthiness of the content source. And 95% place a higher emphasis on credible content from industry experts. So they are looking for this. It's just a matter of whether we're giving it to them. So I think that's what we should do. Give them credible, engaging content that's relevant and useful, credible and trustworthy, and experiential. Today, there is so much content, as Mark Schaefer has talked about many, many, many times. Content shock. There's more content than anyone could ever consume. in a lifetime being produced on a regular basis. And so how do we stand out? It's by creating experiences that are memorable, by creating experiences that are shareable, linkable, and that deserve to show up in search. So why does interactive content play an important role here? 81%, according to a CMI study, of marketers agree that interactive content grabs attention more effectively than static content. You know, those blog posts and ebooks and that sort of B2B content that so many are making. 70% say interactive content is more effective at converting site visitors. And isn't that what it's all about? Now, some folks are thinking, well, okay, I'll do influencer marketing or I'll do interactive. Why not both? As Amisha Gandhi says, head of VP of Influencer Marketing Comms at SAP Procurement, working with influencers to co-create content delivers mutual value, which is awesome. But when that content is interactive, it creates an experience that is more engaging and inspires action, not only for the people that are consuming the content, but also for the people who've contributed and helped co-create the content, because it inspires them to want to make it more successful, reaching even more potential customers. So what are the formats that will work for you? There was a study reported by Content Marketing Institute and Ion Interactive. And I'm going to split this between top of funnel and then middle end of funnel. Some of the top formats for top of funnel content, stuff that creates awareness, creates initial engagement around a subject matter, contests, games, quizzes, interactive infographics, assessments. This is the infotaining content for the most part. I'm going to share an example with you from Citrix, where they had an assessment tool, but they also created influencers, meaning they created personas that are like influencers, but not real people. But it's very interesting how they implemented it. All right, I think we had enough. So they have an assessment tool that invited people to obviously enter information, take the assessment, but they did promotions of the assessment tool using these personas presented just like influencers would be presented. So what are some formats for middle and end of funnel content? Calculators, interactive white papers and ebooks, video, wizards, and product configurators. So these formats require a little more effort on the part of the prospect, and it makes it more meaningful for them. And that's why it's more effective for middle and end of funnel content. So a good example of that is this white paper, interactive white paper from NetApp, which provides access to some of the information. But if you want to drill down into more deeper information, then you need to supply your name or your email address. There are also interactive elements, of course, like quizzes throughout. So, you know, not your standard white paper. It's still pretty two-dimensional. It'd be great if they had some influencers in here to add some social proof and third-party credibility. But as it is, it's a lot more interesting than most white papers and therefore more effective. So what does a framework look like? I'm going to share an example with you of work we've done for Content Marketing Institute for the Content Marketing World Conference. So this is what you're seeing now is a microsite that was created using a particular theme, featuring influencers relevant to the content marketing world. And you can see there's a game. There's several games and interactive elements to this to make it a lot more interesting than saying, hey, people, come check out this information. So the first step in this framework has to do with identifying the topic and theme, because when obviously editorially you want to have some specificity with what it is that you're talking about. Of course, that's good for search as well. But we also want to know what that specific topic is, because we're going to use that topic to find relevant influencers. So in this case, there was a metaphor, vintage big top, used as a theme for the aesthetic and the narrative. Greatest content marketing show on earth, that sort of thing. There are associated keywords that go along with that. And so again, those topics were used to identify relevant influencers for the different sections of the microsite. People who are great around, the skills and craft of content marketing, or the strategy and planning of content marketing, or around promotion and measurement and that sort of thing. So once those influencers were identified and recruited, they were invited to contribute their expertise. Again, the topic research identified as part of the content architecture, aligned the topics with the sections of content, as well as which influencers would be contributing to those sections. And of course, that was also mapped to keywords that it was optimized for. And contributions were solicited through a variety of methods, because influencers are often very busy. They don't always respond quickly. If they don't know you, you'll have to romance for a little bit. But fundamentally, that step is about collecting the content. Now it's about creating the content. So numerous formats were created. Again, there was a microsite that was created. There were promotional videos. There were social messages. There was blog content, and so forth. So this is the assembly of all that information. And then we have to find where are we going to publish it. So this was published on the client website, but there was also supporting content published on the client blog, Top Rank blog. And then from a promotion standpoint, special graphics were created for the influencers. Again, they're driving attention to an interactive experience. So this is something fun for them to do, because it really makes them look good. And it's important to understand the value of creating a content experience people can be proud to be a part of. And so multiple channels were used to get the word out about this interactive asset. And again, there was a promotional video, which I'll show you here in a second. Who's that guy? Okay, you get the idea. And then once things were published and promotion was underway, then there's the practice of monitoring and iterating. Monitoring and measuring and reporting performance. So influencer shares were tracked with UTM encoded URLs. Obviously, blog posts were tracked. So there's a dashboard for that. And then as monitoring occurred and, wanted to see an uptick in improvement of performance, there were some less self-promotional social shares were created for the influencers, so that what was discovered is that when you give an influencer a social graphic of their face plus a quote they made, for a lot of regular marketers, that's just not interesting for them to share. It's just too self-promotional. So rather, we created graphics that showed all of the influencers that were part of the asset and said, here, how about this? And then they could say, hey, look who I am. Look at this great collection of marketers. Look at these smart marketers, and get some great advice from this group of really smart marketers type of thing. It's a lot easier for them to promote and feel good about. And there you go. So that's a quick framework. And I know that a lot of this is quick. I'm sure this is being recorded, so you can look at it later. Now I'm going to share with you a case study that's a little more specific in terms of its architecture, or I should say it's another look at the architecture of how B2B interactive content incorporated influencers to add credibility, to add experience. This is an audio-driven ebook, if you've ever heard of such a thing. So this highlighted a simulated voice assistant surfacing influencer expertise. So this was a campaign from a company called Profix that was adding artificial intelligence capabilities to its corporate performance management software. They sell into the financial planning and accounting industry, and they wanted to make sure they created awareness around this unique differentiator in their software. So they could have beat their chest and put out a report saying, this is the way forward, these are challenges in the marketplace, and this is the way forward. Or they could have asked industry experts who already have the trust and attention of their customers and prospects to share those same messages, and to do it in an infotaining way. So the objective to create that affinity was successful in that industry experts were recruited to share their advice via audio. The ebook could be consumed as text, but it could also, as you just saw or heard, it could be consumed via audio as well. And of course, the voice assistant, given the industry of financial planning and accounting, her name was Penny, not unlike Siri or Alexa. Anyway, so keyword research helped identify topics in demand relevant to this subject matter so that content was planned with search in mind, as you do. But those keywords were also used to find the right influencers, meaning we wanted to make sure that this is both findable through search, but also credible, and that there was continuity in the experience, and that when someone was searching on a thing, they click through, arrive on the search result, that they're seeing industry experts that are relevant about the very same thing, not some tangential topic. And so what happened with this confluence of interactive search and content, interactive and search? They had 189% increase in views, but 642% more engagement, which is exactly the purpose of this guide, was to create more information consumption around this idea that Profix has AI capabilities in their software. So I know this is a lot of information. It's very quick. And so we'll have some time for questions. But I'm going to leave you with some takeaways. To get started, first, I can't stress enough how important it is to identify a customer solution topic. So find the topic that is, and if you're doing keyword research already, you're ahead of the game. You've already understand some ideas around what's in demand, but that's also relevant to the customer. What is it that we want to be the best answer for? What do we want to be influential about? And what kind of experience do we want to create for the customer? So identify that customer solution topic or topics, and then pick the interactive content type, story, and call to action that is relevant to the particular objective that you have, whether it's creating awareness, creating engagement, or driving sales. And then you've got to work to identify influencers. Now, there wasn't identifying influencers isn't a matter of you just going to marketing saying, hey, who's influential? Or some executive in your company saying, hey, who are our influencers? Who's influential around us? It's really important that you try doing that with software that can crawl, the millions and millions of social messages and algorithmically or using AI, identify those individuals who have a combination of reach, in other words, network size or popularity, but more importantly, the relevance, the topical relevance, that individual is indeed publishing content or on the topic that you as a brand want to be the best answer for. Almost or just as important is resonance. This is a data point in which it measures the degree to which that topic is something that resonates with the network of an individual influencer. Clearly, we want to inspire influencers to share the thing they help to make. And if the thing that they help us make is foreign and unwelcome to their network, it was a waste of time. So reach, relevance, and resonance are some important data points for you to consider when identifying influencers. And then you've obviously got to recruit them. But once you identify those influencers and the topics that they represent, you map that to your content. So you're working with the right kind of influencer for early stage, middle stage, or late stage type of content. Obviously, you've got to collect your tips. Be persistent. Don't be annoying. Don't be entitled when you ask an influencer to contribute content. This is a deal breaker. So be patient. Always communicate with them when you're asking for quotes or tips or whatever, like it's the first time, and create a really great experience for them. Show them that they're special and make it easy for them to promote. I can't tell you how impactful it is to make the experience enjoyable and easy to do in terms of how that can facilitate the success of an entire program, just because someone was a little empathetic and a little thoughtful when reaching out and engaging with those influencers. And then once you've published and you've promoted and the campaign's a success, give them feedback on how they did. You may have to not work with certain influencers anymore because of how well it went or didn't go. And there may be others that you are introduced to that you want to work with on a go forward. But of those that have made the grade, continue to nurture them. Don't let it go silent. Don't let the communication go silent until you need them the next time. That doesn't engender a good relationship, and it makes it really easy for competitors to sort of steal those influencers away from you. So if you're not paying them directly, which is often the case in B2B, then it's really important that you do make some kind of effort to keep the love alive. I can't stress how easy and simple it is to repurpose the content that they helped you make and to publish that repurposed content in the weeks or months after the initial campaign is launched with that influencer in there. Include influencer quotes and contributed articles to industry publications. They're going to see all this and they're going to appreciate that you're giving them that exposure. So if you have any questions that are in more than what you would like to ask today, my contact information is on the screen. And also, we just finished data collection on the first ever B2B influencer marketing research study. An incredible number of major B2B brands answered very, very insightful questions around best practices, strategies they're following, tactics, operations, what technologies they're using, how they're budgeting, what they're budgeting, and future trends. So this is the first of what will be an annual report. The first one will come out in June. You can be notified when that first report comes out from the URL on your screen. So now hopefully we have some time.
Thank you. No, you got some really great feedback on your slides here. Certainly some questions coming in. I do have to disagree with you. I think we can get a 50-foot grizzly bear in all of our content if we really try. I do want to start. We had a couple technical questions that I just think are worth asking.
Okay.
I think when people hear interactive content and see some of these really cool things that you're doing, they get overwhelmed of like, I don't necessarily have those skills. Are there any tools that people can use to create, like if you don't have a huge like dev budget?
Well, making something special like that, it does require special skills, no doubt. And tools are instrumental. We happen to use Ceros, C-E-R-O-S, quite often as an interactive content development platform. We've experimented with some others here and there. Webflow is another one. Webflow is a lot less expensive. Features a little bit different. There's always trade-offs. So from a tool standpoint, those are two I can share that we have experience with and that we've used.
Yeah, very cool. And then I'll ask you this classic question, how do I get my clients to do this? Right? Like, it is a bigger sell. And I think that's really the question, right? It's a bigger sell. So, how do you approach that with whether it's a client or your own internal team?
Well, when clients, so it depends. And if you're a part of the strategy discussion, how you approach that and answer that question. If you're a consultant and you're engaged to provide strategic direction for a client, then the research that you do to inform that strategy about what customers prefer, about what trends are happening in that industry should surface whether interactive content makes sense or not. If you're not involved in the strategy conversation and you're not making those kinds of recommendations, there's plenty of evidence like what I've shared today that interactive content drives better performance. And including industry experts in content, it's great for performance of any kind of content. It's also good for SEO because the keywords you research for optimizing or topics or whatever, you research for search optimization are the same topics that you're going to use to find influencers. And I mean, it just makes sense that if we're going to optimize a page for a topic that someone is looking for, why not make that page more credible by including someone who has known and respected expertise around the very same topic? And that person might be from your own company. It might be one of your existing customers. It might be an industry expert. It might even be, this is my favorite, is a prospective customer that you can invite to be a part of content that you're making for the greater industry in which you operate.
Yeah, I love that. This is a little bit of a trickier question, I think, but I think it's valuable. What kind of budget and teams timelines are usually involved in something like this? I'd imagine, right? It's not just, your usual, hey, we have a topic and now we have 2 weeks to write this.
No, that's a great question. Yeah. So some of these interactive, like the penny thing. So that was a very clever idea on the part of my team to come up with this simulated voice assistant. Can you imagine what it would cost to create, AI for a bot?
You don't have that sitting around.
No. Yeah, exactly. So, so simulating things like that can be a fun way. Like people get it. They know it's not real, but it's a metaphor, and it's therefore infotaining in that way. But something like that is it's probably 3 months, from conception. There's the recruiting, there's the obviously content development, and the interactive creation. And then there's all the promotional assets to go around it. Imagine a hub and spoke diagram, so that the interactive microsite is the hub. And then of course there are derivative content assets around that, from long form interviews on blog posts, infographics, promotional video, maybe motion graphic, and social shares and that sort of thing. And there's content you've got to create for the influencers as well, if you want to make it easy.
I wanted to ask you about that because it seems like the influencer piece is a pretty big part of it, obviously, for the success of it. And you gave us some really good tips on, what to do for influencers. I love that bit about like giving them, here are all the speakers, right? That's really great. What would you suggest, you're an influencer. What do you hate that people do, when they approach you? Like, what are things not?
I just wrote a blog post about this. Influencer marketing, don't be a clown. Stop clowning around. I guess the transactional ask is, I just got an ask from someone to help them promote something of theirs, and we don't know each other very well at all. In fact, we compete, or we used to, not anymore. But it's like, why would I do that? I don't understand. But more often is just a transactional ask. So, how a lot of people are doing listicle articles still today, and listicles are valuable when they're done well. But if you're not curating them from existing content, and you're literally going to 50 people and asking them to give you something, and you just give them a link to a form, and you communicate in terms of what's in it for you as the publisher of the listicle and not what's in it for them, that kind of transactional experience is very empty. And I see a lot of people doing that, even some very credible individuals. It's very efficient for them. There's no thank you. There's no, the next thing you hear is, okay, it's published, now go share, with no suggested share. You're not even featured. So if the thing about it is, if someone comes to you and says the reason they're coming to you is because you are unique and have some expertise that is valuable, and then their behavior is not treating you in a special way, is not creating an experience for you, why in the world would you want to be a part of that thing, right? So there's got to be a value exchange. If it's not a great experience and awesome exposure, like low effort on input, high return, if it's not that, then it better be money. I mean, even when it's money, it may not be interesting if it's a bad experience.
Yeah. I want to end with this. If you were right, you're telling someone we want to start with interactive content, what's the first thing they should do?
The first thing you have to do is understand there's a prerequisite. Who are your customers? What is the pain point that they have? What are you solving for? You got to have to understand what is the message, or what is the problem you're trying to solve with this content, right? You've got to have that. Now, the first thing to do from an interactive standpoint is, what story do you want to tell? Right? So what is your goal? Are we just trying to create awareness? Are we trying to create engagement? Are we trying to convert people? And once we decide who the audience is and the problem we're trying to solve, and what kind of stage we're after, that's where then the story decision helps inform what kind of interactive experience you want to architect. So you don't just decide, we're going to do some interactive content. I mean, you could, but what's the point, right? That's what is that? A nail looking for a hammer, or I don't know, whatever. Problems looking for a solution, looking for a problem. Yeah. And rather make sure interactive makes sense.
Yeah. Good. Perfect. Right. I mean, with any content, you got to have a goal, right? Well, thank you so much. This was so great. Obviously, people can find you on Twitter. Here's your handle. Where else can people find you, or where else would you like them to look?
I'm publishing weekly on toprankblog.com. But more importantly, my team is publishing the other 4 days a week. This will be, gosh, when did we start? 2003. So yeah, our blog's going to be 17 years old in December. So there's a lot of content, a lot of fresh content being published. So go to Top Rank Blog, certainly toprankmarketing.com. And I'd love to chat with anybody who has questions.
Awesome. Thank you so much. And I can attest your blog is fantastic. Thank you so much, Odden. Great session. You know, you can get, Semrush will be sending out the webinar. You can probably get his slides online. I know that we have people who might just be joining. Maybe you had to pop out. Next up, we have Andy